what's trickling out of that? What are the kinds of legal issues that you're seeing more specifically around, that's coming across your desk in this day and age?
Well, the employment law issues are big ones because you do have to face the specter of layoffs these days, which and really numbers that are unheard of in my experience. And every company, big and small, has had to face that as part of the cost cutting and the reaction to the economic circumstances we have. And these issues are big because obviously employment law issues carry a huge number of both legal and psychological challenges, for social challenges for the company. But strictly from a legal side, that's one of the biggest first things we see. The other thing is just can we essentially push our creditors out a little bit? Are we not able to really pay our bills on time? Can we negotiate with creditors? Can we negotiate in a very flexible and strategic way so that we don't end up putting ourselves in a tough position? That's another issue these companies hit that many of them are not prepared for, never felt like they'd be there, and now they are, and they turn to the lawyers for that. The other way is strategically managing the documents and the legal obligations of the company to help them get through times like this. In other words, try to strategically negotiate a deal so that you're not literally have a gun or figuratively have a gun to their head if indeed they run into tough economic times like this. And that's part of where the strategic value comes in, to be able to anticipate times like this and set up the doc so that there is flexibility and the ability to get through some of these tough times without very, very tragic consequences.
Let's dig a little deeper on that because that's a new concept to me. What do you mean by the legal documents and setting them up strategically?
I think in terms of the for instance, a good example, the upfront financing documents. If you have an initial infusion of capital from an angel or VC firm, for instance, or even in some situations a bank loan, but primarily equity financing, you want to string the investor is going to naturally ask for rights and certain obligations to be imposed on the company. What you've got to do is where a law firm like mine or a lot of the lawyers we deal with who are good strategically plan ahead and think about what's going to happen. What rights do we have? How can we structure this so that we're not put in a box? If things do go wrong, we've got to think about that. We just can't, like the mistake we made back in the late 90s, early 00s was that everything was good. It was only going to get better.
Right.
And I think we've been cured of that. I mean, remember at one point, Robert, you'll remember this, there was only one direction, either up or more up. There was no down nobody knew what a down round was. Now we've got to strategically think about down rounds of financing, about problems, just straight economic problems. And we try to really infuse our documents with thinking about those kind of things so that when we run into the problems, we're not facing them for the first time. And worse, we don't want to put our clients in. The worst thing you can do is get in a box where there's no way out. You want to at least have flexibility, especially in a horrible economic time. And one of the biggest things we try to look for is flexibility in everything that we structure. It's not always possible. Obviously you're dealing with a position of not much leverage when you're a small company dealing with a VC firm, for instance. But you do the best you can to leave yourself flexibility on the side of the company so that you're not put in a box when things do go wrong like they have nowadays for many companies. So really it's the idea that the whole point, Robert, really the value that we add and that good law firms add is just thinking ahead. Don't just do a project today. There's ramifications 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the road, all the way to when you sell the company, take it public, or whatever the eventual resolution is, or if you just continue to run it. And the key here for all early stage companies and for change the world entrepreneurs is to think ahead. It's a cliche. Everybody says it all the time. Very few people do it. And that's where I think where the rubber meets the road for companies like this.
I'm taking some good notes here. One of the things I just did an interview with somebody else on the debt side. There's banks who are, like you said, shut down, but then there's also debt financiers out there, right? Who are more along the lines of deal makers, kind of like your private equity, et cetera. So this is new learning for me because I've never done a deal with a debt financer, financing arm from a debt perspective. But when you talk about pre-negotiating those things, I mean that's good new learning for me.
It is. And I don't see personally much in the way of debt. The debt that I see is on the side of mostly angel investors and some VCs who do deals through a debt instrument, convertible to equity later on. Mm-hmm. We do not in our practice deal a lot with debt financing right at this point in time. It's just not there really in any form for any of our clients. Some of the clients will factor their receivables and do some things like that, but that to me is a short-term Band-Aid for a problem. And for the most part, we are dealing with equity financing, be it angel, VC, or private equity, and that's really where our focus is. And we do see occasionally some debt financing. In better times, you see much more of it, but at these times, it's just not there for us for most of these companies.